Hello, everyone, and welcome to the season finale of season 1 of the NONA Sports Show. I will start this one off on my own. I'm Edgar Rodriguez, your host and producer, as always. But today we are going to catch up on some very important NONA news that we haven't been able to cover in recent weeks, and then we'll move into the biggest headlines and talking points from the world of European football. So, without further ado, let's get right into this one. First, we're going to start with more recognition from USL2. It seems like, yes, the season was in the summer, but our boys keep setting the world alight in their college teams, and they're getting rewarded for it. Charles All and Clarence Lorio from Stetson, they were named to the ASUN first teams respectively, but now Charles All was named to the first All-Atlantic team, and Clarence made it onto the second All-Atlantic team. Unbelievable achievements from our boys playing for Stetson. So for those two, they keep getting rewarded, like I said, for their incredible college seasons they had in 2024. Some more news as well. Slade Starnes, who was a guest on the previous NONA Sports Show, he has made his move official to SMU, an incredibly big name in the world of men's college soccer. He gave us a hint that he was going to go into the portal this month, leaving behind an incredible career at Furman, of course winning the SoCon Conference with his teammates Ivan and Christian, of course, who also played for NONA FC this past summer. But big congratulations to Slade Starnes, who makes, like I said, a massive move to SMU. Now he will be able to test himself at arguably an even higher level of men's college soccer. We saw him dominate the back line for NONA FC last summer. We know what he can do, so keep your eyes on next season where you will see Slade Starnes playing for SMU. Of course, Ivan and Christian graduated from Furman this past summer, so all the best to them. We'll keep an eye on their next moves. But moving on now to NAIA soccer, we have a NONA alum who won the national title with Dalton State, Pedro Kruczewski, winning the national title in his freshman year playing up in Georgia. Dalton State taking the title this season, an incredible season. And for Pedro, of course, a former Longhorn here at NONA, to have that experience in his first collegiate season, it can only get better for him, right? A title to kick off his college career. Big congratulations to Pedro Kruczewski for that achievement. Let's move on now to some youth soccer news. We had two teams playing at the EDP playoffs this past weekend. We had the 2015 boys black team, coached by Coach Seal, of course, and the 2013 girls, who went over there and set the stage alight. They did as best as they could. We have a day 2 goal from Ricky from the 2015 black team. Here it is now. I mean, a great cross from that near side from Isai, and then on the half volley, Ricky scoring that incredible golazo. Congratulations to them. They had an incredible experience down by the coast for the EDP playoffs. Of course, that caps off an incredible season they had, being able to reach that tournament, EDP playoffs. It's a big thing in the state of Florida. So for them to play the best of the best in terms of youth soccer teams here in Florida, that'll be an incredible experience they can take into next year, of course. UPSL is up next now, and of course our team beating Shock City FC in the first round of the playoffs. They went all the way to penalties after a 2-2 game after extra time. A very chaotic penalty shootout, I think, to say the least. I will roll the clip of I think we can call it a ghost goal. The goalkeeper for Shock City, Grayson Nichols, fun fact, I went to high school with him. The referees said that this was a save. It clearly went into the back of the net, though. That goal did not count. But thankfully, our boys could get it done with the 5th penalty kick, and which sealed a place into the quarterfinal stage, where they played Florida Premier yesterday, unfortunately losing 3-0 to them. But again, UPSL playoffs, it's a high level of youth soccer, and for them to once again get that exposure, get that game time, will serve them well moving into next year. Of course, more USLA, more UPSL, and of course USL2 in the summer. Maybe we get to see some of those boys get into the squad. That'll be very interesting to see. But we're going to end things off with the first ever Nemours Recreational Festival that took place this past weekend. I will roll the reel of the whole day over this, but an incredible tournament. I mean, we put on such a great show at Austin Tyndall. It's almost like a mini NONA Cup for the rec teams, right? We had all of our rec teams show out, not just from the NONA area, but also St. Cloud, for example, Azalea Park. They were all there for a massive celebration of soccer. They had a bounce house. They had their stage set up. So like I said, a mini NONA Cup for the rec teams to feel special as well. Of course, they deserve it. And a quick note on rec registration. It opens up today, December 16th. Rec registration opens up for next year. There's a 50% discount going on right now. So if you are interested, make sure to head over to the website to sign your kid up for next year. It really is a great time that we have here at the NONA Soccer Academy. But that, I believe, wraps up this first part of the last episode of Season 1. Caught you guys up on all of the NONA news. There was so much to catch up on. Congratulations to all of the accolades that we have, achieved and have celebrated at the club these past couple of weeks. But stay tuned though, because the next part of the show, Patrick will be joining me to talk about some international soccer. Don't go anywhere.
Hi there. At Migaloo Pool, we make pool care easy, convenient, and hassle-free. We're your one-stop shop for everything your pool needs. Whether it's regular cleanings, equipment repairs, or even a completely pool remodel, our experienced team is ready to handle it all. You can trust us to keep your pool sparkling and running perfectly. Looking for supplies? Stop by our Orlando store. It's stocked with all essentials and extras to keep your pool in top shape. With Migaloo Pool, it's all in one place. Professional services, quality supplies, and a team that cares about your pool as much as you do. Let's make pool care simple and enjoyable. Contact us or visit our store and see how Migaloo can make a difference for you.
All right, everyone, we are back, and sitting to my left, Patrick DeLeon, as always, my man. How are you?
I'm all good. I'm super excited to be back here again. I love
for
it
the
here.
last time.
Last time this
Last
year.
time this year. That's
Correction.
right.
Don't make the
Not
viewers
forever.
sad.
Not forever.
But yeah, what do we have in store for us today?
We have a lot to talk about, Patrick. We haven't, like I told you before, we haven't had like a normal show in a while. We had the NONA Cup take, top priority, of course. And then we, of course, had the special USL2 episode with our Furman boys. But now we're back to talk about international soccer like we normally do. We have pinpointed 3 matches that took place in this past week to kind of recap and talk about because they were insane. And we're going to start in the Champions League. We're going to start at the Signal Iduna Park. Dortmund 2, Barca 3, an incredible back and forth match. I'm not going to lie, I was watching Arsenal 3, Monaco 0, but I was keeping an eye on this one too. Guidassi scoring a brace, Rafinha put Barca in the lead, keep scoring goals, and then Ferran Torres was the game winner for Barca. I mean, back and forth match.
Oh yeah, but the thing is, I was telling you like as I was watching the game, it was only when I texted you the first time when I was watching it, Dortmund was just conceded like 1-0, so it didn't look that bad. But the thing is, the way Dortmund was moving and playing, man, they looked so almost lifeless, almost. Okay. Despite the score, like 2-3, back and forth, 5 goals and all, but man, they really didn't convince me at all. Like Barcelona, they were pressing, they were just in Dortmund's box the entire time, and I mean that. Like they were just hammering them, and Dortmund couldn't get out. And clearly, you see that happen, near the end in the 85th minute when Ferran Torres scored the 3rd goal to seal the deal for Barcelona. Dortmund, they were really struggling in that game, defensively at least. So now that result puts Barcelona at 2nd place with 15 points in the table. Dortmund just shy of the automatic qualification spot, sitting at 9th with 12 points, 4 wins, 2 losses for them.
And I mean, it's so close, right? Because that top 8, this new format is really keeping it alive until the last second.
I didn't think I was going to like it. I'm going to be one of those people who's like, I might like. But honestly, I think it's delivered a lot of jobs. Because look at all these smaller teams we've seen. Brest, Lille, up top, hanging out with the big boys, showing that they can do it. It's been a lot of fun.
I was one of the proponents for it. I was like, let's give it a try, right? Let's not knock it until we have seen what it produces.
And I
And
think it's
man,
been fun.
it's
Yeah.
incredible. Dortmund, Bayern, Atleti, and Milan all sitting on 12 points just outside of that top 8.
Yeah.
Which of course secures you an automatic place into the knockouts. But yeah, I mean, crazy game. I feel like Dortmund at home always like they never have like a sure 3-0 win. I think
Yeah.
it's rare for Dortmund to walk out of a game convincing. You know
yeah.
what I'm saying? And Barcelona went there, solidifying second place, like you said. They already have their place booked into the last 16. Let's move into the Europa League now. A tournament we haven't talked much about, but there was an incredible game at the Johan Cruyff Arena. Ajax falling to Lazio 3-1. I think the main thing I wanted to touch on is Pedro Rodriguez.
Yeah.
Now, when I told you he scored, you were like,
I didn't realize he was still playing.
Exactly.
I really liked him at his time in Barcelona years ago. We're talking 10 years ago
Yes.
already to the day.
shows our age.
Yeah. But it's just been, and I remember seeing him then, and when he went to Chelsea again.
Right.
From there, I kind of figured, he was slowly declining. His age, of course, that happens to everybody, unfortunately.
Of course.
He's, 37 now, I believe?
37 years old.
But look, he's still involved. He's still playing at a high level for Lazio, scoring in the Europa League against Ajax, giving them that 3-1 victory away. Definitely still contributing to the team at 37 years old.
Right, and we've talked about how close Serie A has been this season, right? I mean, Lazio sitting at the top of the Europa League table. They sit 5th in Serie A. Okay, but 5th. 3rd, 4th, and 5th, all in Serie A, are on 31 points at the time of recording. Lazio have a huge game at San Siro against Inter. That's going to have huge permutations in the table. But, I mean, Lazio going to a team like Ajax, and I mean, man...
But we can also talk about Ajax.
Of course.
Where we saw them 5 years ago.
That's
right?
where I was going
5
with
years
it.
ago, Champions League semifinalists, just losing to Tottenham that year. But it kind of feels like ever since then, they've been on the decline. Remember
On a steady decline,
remember
too.
Exactly. Remember how last year, the year before that, you were like, wow, they actually might get relegated from the Eredivisie.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's like, it's Ajax. That doesn't happen to Ajax, of all teams. Synonymous with international football. Ajax is one of the big dogs, producing all this talent, and they can't seem to get anything right as of recent.
No,
know?
and they're going through a complete, not even reconstruction, just a complete rebuild.
Yeah.
It's a very young squad. They've changed managers, way too often to have a steady run of progressive form. And we've seen PSV, for example, in Eredivisie run away with the title. They've kind of taken over, of course, PSV and Feyenoord.
Yeah, of course.
But you would think, Ajax in the top 5 at the moment. But, I mean, it's below par for them. They are meant to be setting the standard in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
And it's almost like they were kind of like a Celtic, right? Like for the last 10, 12 years, always, they're going to win the Scottish Premiership. Almost like Juve. I think their decline can be compared to Juve a little bit.
Yeah, but at least with Juve, we're starting to see little sparks.
Very true. With Thiago Motta, of course.
Yeah, of course. Starting to see little sparks of that re-ambition, finding their new brand of football, right? Ajax, we still haven't seen that yet, in my opinion.
We have not. Let's see where they go. Of course, see if they even make it to the knockouts. It's going to be tough for them.
Yeah, they're pretty down there in the standings.
Yes,
they're still
they are.
in the playoff positions for the knockout stages for the Europa League, but that's not a position where they're used to be.
And
they're used to, play in.
Right,
I don't know how I would word that, but yeah, it's definitely an uncomfortable situation. For them.
Of course, and I was going to say too, we've never seen the chaos
that
these playoff games are going to bring. I mean, it's going to be a toss-up.
Yes.
It's really going to be a toss-up. We'll see where they end up. But to close off this portion of the show, Patrick, we have to talk about the Manchester Derby from yesterday.
But of course.
It's rare, right, that a Manchester Derby, that you go into one and the teams are sitting 5th and 13th. But that was the situation heading into the Etihad Stadium. And my goodness, I mean, yes, it wasn't the most thrilling of matches. But I really hope you didn't turn your TV off, because right at the death, Manchester United getting an improbable victory thanks to a Bruno Fernandes penalty and an Amad Diallo winner.
Two goals in 2 minutes or 3 minutes. 2 goals in 2 minutes. And Man, but that's kind of just summarizes Manchester City as a whole this season, I feel like.
100%, 100%.
You know, not to disrespect Manchester United, but it's also at the same time, it's like it's Manchester United. You're Manchester City. Right now, as of the last 10 years, you're almost expected to beat them almost every single time, or at least not lose to them like that, right?
They had won 5 of the last 6 Manchester derbies. That tells you all you need to know. And in those results, we've seen scores like 6-3 City. We've seen demolition jobs by City. Yeah.
It's almost like a guarantee. It's almost like Manchester United fans had dread heading into that kind of match day. But I feel like for the first time in a long time, they felt like, okay, we can actually win this, right?
I agree.
And they did. Just like how you were explaining to me, the Gvardiol goal, very, very awkward goal.
All pure, down to luck. Down to luck. I was telling you, you know how they always show the manager's reaction to goals, and usually it's an elation, right? It's a huge outpour of joy.
Yeah.
Pep was complaining about it almost.
Because that's not the brand of football he plays. Manchester City does not play like that, yet they've been playing like that since the start of the season. So, and then Manchester United come in, they see it, they capitalize on it, scoring 2 goals at the end of the game to seal the deal, take it to their side of Manchester, right? Man, City fans, Pep Guardiola, the whole team in general, the whole club, they are in shambles, I think.
Yeah, that's the only way to describe it.
They're in shambles. And that result, again, kind of heading into the final games of the year, really just sums it up, puts a cherry on top of a really bad tasting cake.
It's a terrible tasting cake. I think it went spoiled a few months ago now for City. I saw a stat just before coming on air, and it compared the worst points per game average, right, in the Premier League since November. And City are tied with Southampton, Patrick. They're averaging 0.57 points a game.
And Southampton are at the bottom of the league with
they're
one
already
win.
Relegated. They're already relegated, right? I think you can count them in the championship next season. That's not premature. That's not a hot take at all.
By the way, they also fired their manager after losing 5-0 to Tottenham,
which we will get to in the next part. Don't get too ahead of yourself, Patrick. But just to put it into perspective, City have been that poor. And it's something we have never seen under Pep Guardiola. In his post-match conference, he said himself, I don't have the answers. I'm not good enough. He said it himself. When did we ever think that one of the best managers to have ever, managed in the Premier League, in the world of club football,
in general,
in this situation? I mean, they have to stop the slide.
Yeah.
I mean, Pep Guardiola, I think we can't even talk about a potential sack. I feel like he is unsackable.
That's too much, I think.
Yes.
Right.
Even City can lose each game, their whole remaining schedule, and he won't get sacked. I think that's safe to say. But, I mean, this has to end at some point.
Hopefully we see that transition at the beginning of the new year, which I think will probably happen. But I don't think it's going to be enough to kind of recover what they've already lost.
True. I think the Premier League title is beyond them this season. But like you said, you can never count City off because in the new year, a switch usually comes on and they go on an incredible run. And we might be sitting here in a few weeks' time saying, oh, look, the normal City are back, right? But, hey, it's all up in the air at the moment. But, Patrick, that was fun. 3 very eye-catching games that we just had to talk about. And, of course, so much more still to come. The end of the year, always busy, especially in English football, which we will catch up on in the next season of the NONA Sports Show. But stay tuned, because to wrap this episode up, there are so many headlines to talk about and discuss, so don't go anywhere.
Something new, something fresh, yeah, I'm super obsessed. Let me know when you done messing. A little that, a little this, then you put it to the test. It's all in the expression. It's a mood, it's a vibe, it's a state of mind. And now I want it more. It's a mood, it's a vibe, it's a state of mind. Okay, you got the floor, it's looking good. I kinda like that.
just like that, we have made it to the last segment of season 1, Patrick. It's coming to an end, yes, but just in a couple weeks we'll be right back, right?
course.
So, but let's end this show off with a bang, talking about all of the stuff going on in international soccer. There's never a moment's rest, Patrick, right?
Nope.
Let's start locally.
Yeah.
Facundo Torres, the rumor,
Yes.
the transfer rumor going around right now is that he's going to leave Orlando City, which I know disappoints you greatly, but I mean, Palmeiras is knocking on the door.
They're knocking, and you got to answer. Like, it doesn't matter. Palmeiras, one of the biggest clubs on this side of the world, of the globe.
Undoubtedly.
You know, one of, if not the biggest club in Brazil, arguably. I know I'm probably going to get some slack from the staff here at NONA for saying that, but it's kind of true. It's Palmeiras. You can't deny Palmeiras when they come knocking. Especially, you know, he's done, I think he's done his part here in Orlando. Could have been better at some moments, absolutely. But he took Orlando City to the U.S. Open Cup trophy in 2022. He became their all-time leading goal scorer. Unfortunately, there were some games, though, where it felt like he just wasn't checked in all the way. The last one, seemingly his last game, being the one where they lost to New York Red Bulls in the Eastern Conference final. It just didn't look he was checked in, and I think that's probably not the way he wanted to leave.
Right.
You know, it's a hard way to go, but he's done his time thing. I think here he's done everything he pretty much could.
Absolutely.
You know, like I said, could he have been better? Yes, absolutely. But it's Palmeiras. They're offering $14 million, including add-ons. Orlando City would retain a sell-on clause, so they'll make more money, assuming he gets sold again,
right,
maybe to Europe. Because we've seen the pipeline before. We've seen Diego Almada going from Atlanta to Botafogo, and then to Lyon in Europe, because all under the same ownership
John
group,
Textor,
you know,
right.
Of course. So we've seen that Miguel Almiron Atlanta to Newcastle, and more recently Diego Gomez from Inter Miami going to Brighton. Huge deal, because he was excellent young player.
Tati Castellanos.
Who is playing for Lazio, who we just
spoke on, yeah.
Right? Playing for New York City, and then jumping to Girona, then to Lazio.
So let me ask you then, do you think Facundo Torres, let's say that move goes through because it's likely,
right?
Do you think he can be the next one to go to Europe?
See, the thing is, right, something I've always said about him is he does not have a right foot.
Oh, okay. Which
is why
detrimental.
That's the thing. That's what separates these kinds of players that are playing for the top teams, the best leagues in Europe. To even if you're playing for Palmeiras, even if you're playing for River Plate, even if you're playing for Boca Juniors, it doesn't matter. There's just these fine little details that separate you from being good to being great to being amazing to being nearly perfect, right? So if he can improve in Brazil, if he can really hone in those fine little details, he can absolutely make the jump. Maybe not for a top team yet.
Right.
We're not talking about Arsenal, Manchester City, but he can absolutely, I think, play for a club like Brighton, play for a club like Leverkusen, maybe. You know, teams like that.
Okay.
I think. It's going to be sad to see him go, but it's the sport, it's the business.
Right,
That's
of course. And he, like you said, he did his part here at Orlando City. I think he has been Orlando City these past couple years. I mean, he has been the main marksman for the Purple Lions, but it looks likely he will be making that move to Brazil pretty soon, so keep your eye on that. Next up, Sporting Lisbon. Patrick, we spoke about them when Amorim left to United. You know, that move sparked a terrible run of form, losing to clubs like Santa Clara, right, to Club Brugge in the Champions League, to Moreirense as well in Portugal. Yes, they won their last game against Boa Vista, but that was only 3-2, and usually these are games that Sporting runs away with, right? These are games that Sporting wins comfortably. That move, that Amorim, you know, the decision he took has proved costly for Sporting.
Yeah, and I remember me saying, I don't think they'll be affected so much by this. I think they'll do just fine because Sporting, they're one of the premier clubs in Portugal, you know, and in Europe. Lots of history.
And they're still first in Liga Portugal, of course, but that gap can slowly, you know, decrease now.
Yeah, especially because you have your rivals. You know,
always have Benfica, always have Porto.
Right, you have your rivals that are going to be looking at them and be like, they're going to try to take advantage of it as well. I mean, yeah, they are going through a rough patch though.
They are.
Amarine, I mean, hey, you can't blame him. You know, it's a huge opportunity to Manchester United, despite everything that's going on over there. They're a huge club at the end of the day. Huge club. He's going to want to take... Now, whether it was smart to do it in the middle of the season, not even in the middle of the season, almost to the middle of the season, or wait until the end of the season and start next season, right? That's a whole different story. You know,
Right.
I'm sure Sporting would have liked to keep him, but I think they also knew they had a say in whether or not, whether they should have let him go so early. And I think right now I think they'll be fine. I think it's just kind of like a shock and off kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree.
They'll find their form again and they'll be okay. But right now they're kind of in the pits.
No, 100%. And I agree with the awkward timing of it. But then again, go into Amarim's shoes, right? And
Right.
you're looking at this opportunity. Yes, United have been dreadful. And I mean,
Yeah.
completely like unrecognizable from the United that is well known. But even if it's, start of the season still, I mean, like you said, we're not even midway through the season. Looking at it from a career development point of view for Amarim, he just couldn't wait. He couldn't
can't
wait.
say no
And I
to
don't
that,
think
yeah.
United could have waited either.
No.
I mean,
It
they
was
could,
urgent.
Yeah, it really
urgent.
was.
So it was really just almost like he was forced to
Yep.
say yes.
Yep.
Even if he wanted to wait, he just knew that he had to do it right then and there. If not, he's going to lose that opportunity.
Unfortunate for Sporting, but we will see if they can regain their form of the very start of the season pretty soon. They're going to need it, of course, if they want to keep going further in the Champions League, of course.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the Premier League. We spoke about the City crisis. We spoke about the insane Manchester derby we saw. But let's focus our attention to the relegation spots. Southampton and Wolves getting rid of their managers, Russell Martin at Southampton. They lost 5-0 to Tottenham. It was 5-0 at halftime. There were pictures of fans leaving the stadium, Patrick, after 25 minutes. It's a complete
Oh, man.
shock,
Yeah.
right? And we knew Southampton were going to be poor, but this poor, it's pretty
Yeah.
bad. Wolves lost to Ipswich, a huge relegation,
Yes.
6-pointer. They lost 2-1. The last two games for Wolves, we have seen their players after the match get into like fist fights almost.
Brawls, yeah.
Unbelievable.
It's just a total mess in the locker room
Yeah.
in Wolves. And it's kind of interesting because I wasn't really expecting them to see them battling so hard against relegation. Southampton, I mean, it was almost kind of expected to see them go down, but like they're
100%.
doing really like 1 win, 2 draws, 13 losses.
That's not gonna cut it.
It's already over for them. There's no way they can catch up to even I think Ipswich, who are only 7 points ahead of them. But I just don't see that happening. Southampton, they're going down. Firing their managers at this stage in the season, though.
That was the question. Do you agree, right? Because we know in the world of football, now managers don't get time. It's a results business, and
yes.
if you're not getting the 3 points on a weekly basis, you're on the hot seat. Do you agree with sacking managers 15, 16 games into a season?
So there's a lot that comes into this, I think. A lot of it comes down to the situation I am. If you're looking at Southampton, you're bottom of the table, I mean, I think you're going to get relegated regardless of what you do.
Exactly.
So why not just, hey, I'm sorry, this isn't going to work out. We're going to have to let you go. Find somebody else to try to maybe get that 17th position, just one outside of relegation. But you also see clubs all the time culturally, not really in England, but you look at Spain, like Osasuna, for example.
Yes.
It doesn't matter how you're doing. They will keep the same manager for years and years because culturally they will put all their time and effort into this one guy in hopes that it works out, and it works out. Freiburg, a recent example as well. They will hold on to managers for 10, 12, 15 years.
Yep.
Despite all the relegations or promotions, they will hold on to them because culturally they're from the city. They're part of the club. They will stick through with them until the manager decides, okay, maybe I'm not fit or I've done my time.
Yep.
But in the Premier League, it's a whole different story. It's
It's
so
cutthroat.
competitive.
It's cutthroat.
like one bad month, you're gone almost, So I think here in the Premier League, it works just fine. You got to let him go. You got to try to salvage the season because think about all the money and jobs you lose if you go down to the championship.
It's insane, and it's not comparable to any other league. I mean, the championship playoff match, it's difference of
brutal.
hundreds of millions of dollars that you're gaining or losing, right?
Yeah.
But then you brought up a great point. Like yes, you sacked your manager, but guess what? You're going down anyway,
I think
right?
you're gonna go down
and so
anyway.
then it's a decision of whether you want to stick with your man, right? If you want to stick with your guy that you have now, and
Or you start preparing for the next season already. Ahead
exactly.
of time.
You know you're going to be in the championship. Okay, do you want to continue with him in the championship? Most teams opt not to, and most teams opt to get rid of them and, start new,
Yeah.
which puts the club in a difficult position. But for Southampton and for Wolves, Gary O'Neill at Wolves, who, what a bizarre situation, because he was at Bournemouth at the end of last season. He got sacked. He wasn't doing too poorly.
You're right.
But then, of course, he gets replaced over there. Bournemouth are, of course, now doing great under their new boss. Gary O'Neill forced, of course, managers want to get the next job immediately as well. Jumped into the Wolves job. Of course, they had Julian Lopetegui, who is in the hot seat at West Ham right now. It's just an incredible, it's always chaotic at the end.
But even still, on occasion, you do see these smaller teams rise up and compete if they get it done right. Like Forest, who are sitting at 4th place.
Nuno Espirito Santo, you read my mind, Patrick. 4th place, sitting alone in 4th place too. City are 2 points below them at the moment. I mean, Nottingham Forest, a late winner against Villa, who, we expected them to be at the sharp end of the table right now. Kind of lacking a little bit, Unai Emery's men, and going through a bit of a rough patch as of late. But Nottingham Forest, my goodness.
Talk about them, like a small team. Not a small team. Historically, they're very good. But as of recent years,
they're fighting with
relegation. Whatever. But right now, they're hanging out with Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, Manchester City. Right now, they're in a Champions League spot. Can they hold on to that until the end of the season is a different question. But man, I think they will be super happy with how the season has gone regardless. Going from the depths of fighting against relegation, staring into the abyss of that, to now, okay, we can compete. We can play for a Conference League. We can play for Europa League. We can play for Champions League even.
I think that's completely realistic. And also, shout out Nuno Espirito Santo. Yeah. He, of course, was at Wolves. We were just talking about them.
Ever since he's left Wolves, though, I think that's when their downfall
went on the
started.
decline. He went to Tottenham. It just didn't fit right from the off.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, he went to Tottenham, and then he went to Saudi Arabia. He spent a year or so in Saudi Arabia.
We see him back here.
And now he's rejuvenated now with Nottingham Forest. We've talked about them before. They have a great front line. They have a very solid team. But for them to be 4th place, like I said, alone in 4th place in the Premier League at this stage is definitely a shock. And definitely the surprise of the season. Let's move over to Spain, Patrick, because just a few weeks ago, Barcelona were running away with La Liga. They had a 10 or 12 point gap at the top, and we were like, my goodness, Hansi Flick, it's worked instantly at Barcelona. As of late, man, my goodness, they have went on a decline.
Yeah, it's only Atletico Madrid are tied with them on points now. Real Madrid are 1 point behind those two.
Yes.
And their last game was against Leganes, who are sitting 15th in the La Liga, and they lost 1-0.
At home.
At home.
I mean,
they definitely have fallen off in terms of form. They're definitely going to be looking to recuperate those points because these are valuable points. You see how close the title race is. They cannot afford to be slipping up now. No. Especially with Atletico Madrid. Real Madrid, who I would say isn't even at their best.
Nowhere near their best.
And
they drew 3-3 with Rayo.
Right. And they're only 1 point behind Barcelona and Atletico Madrid for first place.
Yep. I mean, it's bizarre, right? Yeah. It's really bizarre.
It's definitely going to be one of the more interesting title races, I think, this year.
Yeah, it's very difficult because you even see a team like Athletic Bilbao sitting in 4th place, but they're in it too. Don't count them off.
They're not far off. Only
they're
5 points behind.
Right.
That can easily be recoverable, assuming that results from the other teams go their way as well.
Exactly.
But it's definitely going to be, I think, a dogfight closer to the end of the season if things keep going as they go.
Yeah, and Atletico Madrid, I mean, Diego Simeone has his team firing on all cylinders. The last 11 games, they've gone on an incredible run of form, which has seen them rise to 2nd place at the moment in La Liga. So leagues all around Europe.
Yeah.
It's a toss-up at the moment. It's very, very hard to call. Now, Patrick, I wanted to talk. Yes, we left the best for last, I think, in terms of discussion. The World Cup locations have been released. Yes. 2030. Get ready. We have, Spain, Portugal, Morocco. Okay. That'll be the main tournament. But don't forget, the first games, because it is the 100-year anniversary of the FIFA World Cup, will be Argentina, Paraguay, and Uruguay. So we have 6 host nations, 6 nations already in, because of course if you host, you're in.
Right.
Wow,
I don't know how
lots
I
to
feel about
unpack
that.
there.
So this is my opinion. Forgive me if I go on for a little bit.
Go
Okay.
ahead.
We've seen joint World Cups before. Obviously, it's nothing new.
Right.
Korea, Japan being the first in 2002.
Mm-hmm.
Now the next one, USA, Mexico, Canada in 2026. And then we're going to jump over straight to Spain, Portugal, Morocco. Okay, that makes sense, I think, because these countries, they're also different, but they're also so similar in that Iberian region.
Right.
It's I thought that was, okay, that's a fine idea. But why not have that for the 2034 World Cup? And then have Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, or South America in general for the 100th anniversary of the 1930 World Cup, right?
100%.
To me, that makes more sense. Rather than, because now we're going to talk about, okay, traveling for all these different teams. The teams that are going to be playing in South America, just like you said, they're going to be screwed. Because how are they going to manage to get them, okay, from South America, fly all the way back to Europe/Africa? You know, that's a lot of, that's taxing mentally, physically, time. You know, if you have a break in between, okay, you get your first couple of games done, but now you have to wait a week or 2 weeks, you know, to get it's going to be a really weird start, I think.
It puts them on the back foot. And we were talking, like, what, do we play those games in South America a week before the proper World Cup
but it's
starts?
like, how do you schedule this in a manner where you don't lose the hype? People don't get disinterested because it's all over the place, you know?
And I think logistically, too, to have the whole World Cup in South America, it's tough, right? We have to look at infrastructure. Like
we've seen this happen with even like Copa America in years past. You know, countries that can't host it down there,
and they bring it here to the
U.S. They have to bring it here, right? Yeah. But I mean, yeah, it's definitely a tough situation. I think it's a very awkward, but I think there's better ways to handle it than, you know, having it in 2, 3 technically continents.
Yes.
You know, that just seems like it's so much, and then. Man, I don't know how I feel about it, to be honest. I think it should have just at least stayed in South America for this one, and then do Portugal, Spain, Morocco in the next one in 2034. But Portugal, Spain, that's easy. I think it makes sense because you can get around, you know, trains, public transport. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. So it's so much easier than saying, you know, here in the U.S. we have Canada, Mexico, United States. You're going to have to buy so many flights if you want to go to a bunch of games. It's going to be a tough one. Right? And then, speaking of the 2034 World Cup, it's going to be in Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia, it's going back to the Middle East. Of course, we saw the 2022 World Cup in Qatar.
Right.
Lots of controversy, lots of, bad vibes, I feel like, negative vibes heading into it.
This is my thing, right? I've seen people complain about the World Cup being in the United States again, but here's the thing. It's been 30 years since the World Cup has been in the United States. In terms of the Middle East region, it only had been 12 and 2 World Cups. The USA and then Spain, blah, 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 you know, what we just talked about.
Right.
It's in the span of 1994, from the United States to 2026, back in the United States, we've had World Cups in France, Korea, Japan, Germany, South Africa, Brazil, Russia, Qatar. We've touched essentially every region of the world before coming back to the United States. Qatar and Saudi Arabia, you'll only have touched North America, parts of South America, and Europe, and one country in Africa.
Right.
You know, you're not really spreading. Why not have it in Australia? Even I think Australia would be a fun venue because we've seen it for women's.
Yes,
Australia
I was about to
and New
say.
Zealand.
Yes,
We've seen it,
and it was great.
It was fun.
Yeah.
You know, why not bring it there? Or okay, if we don't do a South America World Cup, why not bring it back to South America? You know, I understand there's only so many countries that can host a World Cup because it takes so much money, the infrastructure needs to be perfect. It needs to check all the boxes. I understand that. But man, going back to Saudi Arabia, nothing wrong with spreading the game and having it in new countries that we've never seen before. I don't have any issues with that. But at the same time, I don't feel like at the end of the day, I think we all know how these decisions are made.
Yes, and that's where the controversy comes
know.
from, right? Because, okay, you take it back to the Middle East, but guess what? That means another Winter World Cup.
Exactly.
We know all of the just
When you think
problems
of,
that
when you think
that,
of a World Cup,
yeah,
you think of summertime.
summer.
That's
World
peak
Cup,
World Cup.
You think summer, Brazil 2014.
Right.
That's what comes to
Yes.
mind immediately.
Or literally any other World Cup before that, right?
Right.
And now you're going to have another awkward pause in the season and an already super congested. I'm going to imagine it's going to get even more congested by the time 2034 rolls around, you know? And it's an awkward position to be in, I think, for sure.
And yeah, I think most of the problems people have is through the voting process. Because, yes, we see a ceremony and Gianni Infantino, the FIFA president.
We saw how Qatar unfolded.
Yeah.
We saw how Russia unfolded.
Is it a continuation of that?
FIFA
That's
has
the worry.
documentaries on them for Netflix for all the wrong reasons. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
And so I think, moving along from that, I think to end this off on a fun note, speaking of the World Cup. So, aside from Europe and South America, North America, Africa, Asia, Oceania, we have not had a World Cup winner from those countries.
No, we haven't.
So, let's talk about that a little bit. If a World Cup were to go to one of those continents first, what country do we think would get it first?
That's a very tough one because, you know, football is generally dominated by European countries, right?
Yes.
There's no getting away from that. There's no getting away
That's kind
from
of
the
just the
Germanys,
fact,
the Spains, the Frances. They're always there. They're always going to make it into probably the Final Four of a World Cup. The first continent that honestly came to mind, simply because of the talent that we've seen come out of there from the last few decades, is Africa, right? We saw Morocco in 2022 make it to fourth place, the first ever time that an African nation made it into a semifinal, which was hard to believe for me, because you think of the runs Ghana and Nigeria and Senegal have had in the past. You would think they've made it that far, but quarterfinals was the furthest they've made it before that. So you would think Africa, but then again, when you look at those nations, it's a lot of...
You look at their infrastructure, though.
Yeah.
The footballing infrastructure is almost non-existent.
No, you're right.
And we've seen the giants, Nigeria, Ghana, Senegal, Ivory Coast, you know, they've been husks of their former selves.
Yeah.
They've been abysmal, even
Recently,
continentally. Yes. Last like 5-6 years.
I believe it was Ghana that didn't qualify for the African Cup of Nations.
Right.
That's
So
unheard
these are
of.
teams that produce players that we hear all the time, you know, icons of the sport.
Eto'o, Drogba, I mean, Salah more recently.
Right.
I mean, that's where my mind goes
Right.
first.
Currently,
But it's tough.
Currently, if we're taking in current present day information, right? If Africa were to get a World Cup, it would come through Morocco.
I think so.
Because they were the closest, finishing fourth in 2022. They were the closest. For me, Oceania.
Probably not.
We'll leave it at that.
Probably not.
We'll leave it. We'll leave it at that.
Right.
We'll move on.
Yep.
We're gonna go to Asia.
Okay.
Okay, Asia. You've got South Korea, Australia, who are competing in Asia, even
Correct.
though they're like, whatever, and then Japan. Okay, South Korea we saw finish fourth in the 2002 World Cup, which was hosted in Korea, Japan, right?
Home field advantage. They took advantage of it.
They did.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people think it was they were doping, and it was controversial because they've never seen a team finish at that level. You know, they've never seen them finish so high. I think it's just national pride because you look culturally. Believe it or not, so many things in football happen because of the cultural influences of that country. It's South Korea. Asians, they're proud of what they do. They give it their all. They were always, I think, going to go far in that tournament. I wasn't born yet, so I didn't watch it. But, like, you just looking back on it, they have every right to do everything they can to go that far.
100%.
And, you know, I'm not saying there was never any real proof of them doping, never real, it was just... Everybody kind of assumed they did because they finished in fourth.
Those
place.
allegations were coming, right?
But I mean, they did their country proud. They put themselves on the map in terms of global international soccer. You look at Japan, funnily enough, they've never made it past the round of 16. Despite the players we've seen from years past, they've had legendary players, you know, present and past, you know, Shinji Kagawa being one of my favorites, right? Currently, you know, Kaoru Mitoma, Takumi Minamino, to name a few that are playing at a high level, right? Wataru Endo, who's playing at Liverpool right now, who's had a really good run of games too. Tomiyasu in Arsenal.
Injured, but
right. But like still, you have players that are capable of playing for huge teams, right? But they've never made it past the round of 16.
Wow.
You know, Croatia. We'll go back to 2022 when they lost to Croatia in a penalty shootout.
Yes.
I think that was the most. I'm not saying the game was unfair, but I think the nature of the game itself, that was so harsh because this is the same team, Japan, that beat Spain, Germany,
in the group
won
stage.
the group.
Yeah.
You know, it was an amazing. It's a group that you were expecting Spain and Germany to go through.
Yep.
Costa Rica, Japan to get knocked out. But man, they dominated. Yeah. They played their hearts out. They played their minds out. And then they lost just so unlucky to Croatia because they just could not score their penalties.
Right.
They fumbled super hard.
They did.
But you look at their current talent now, even domestically, their domestic talent, you see players going to Europe all the time now. Every season there's one or two guys that just go. In terms of Asia, if it were to come from Asia, if a nation in Asia was to win the World Cup, it's going to be Japan, in my opinion.
I agree.
We'll move over real quickly to North America. USA, Mexico, Canada. Mexico, they haven't made a quarterfinal since 1986.
I don't think they're in the running, honestly.
USA, we see them.
Tough.
You look at USA, we've seen the talent we've been homing in on over the years, right? Results have been kind of lackluster. Quarterfinals in 2002.
But I think they're in the best position, though.
I think realistically, just because of the amount of money this country has, the amount of money that is hopefully going to continue pouring into the sport. 2026 on the way here in North America. I'm not saying they will win it then, but I think that's going to be a huge stepping stone to getting one foot in the door, getting more closer to achieving that goal. So I think realistically, you know, with guys like, you know, Christian Pulisic, Weston McKennie, Tim Weah, you know, to name a few, specifically Pulisic and Weah, even Anthony Robinson, who's arguably one of, not the best left back in the Premier League.
2 assists at Anfield.
Right.
Yeah.
And you saw how Weah and McKennie dismantled Manchester City, combined to give them that 2-0 victory.
The first time two Americans
in the Champions
assist
League.
a goal.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe realistically we could see in 2030, 2034 even, USA could be in the running for a legitimate World Cup winning contender.
Wow.
So I think if a continent, out of all of what we just talked about, if they were to win a World Cup, it's going to go to North America and it's going to be the United States.
I think
with Japan coming super close, but I don't think they can do it beforehand.
I think we have sound logic for our conclusion there. I like how we got to our answer. I mean, I don't think you can argue against that. Yeah. The U.S., especially now with Pochettino, a world-class manager, a proven manager who's done it at the highest of levels in Europe.
Still a very young team as well.
Of course, and only an upward trajectory from here, I believe, from the U.S. national team. But Patrick, I mean, I think that's the end. I think we have finally made it to the end of the inaugural season of the NONA Sports Show. I had a bunch of fun.
Yeah, this is so much fun. This is so much. I'll see you back here in a couple weeks.
Absolutely. We will be right back like nothing happened.
This was great. This was probably my favorite talk I think we've had.
I think it was
so
very,
it was so
very
much
good.
fun. I think it was a great way to end off the season. So much fun, and we'll have even more NONA coverage next year. So many big things planned from so many different. We'll keep that a secret for now.
Yeah, keep that under the wraps because I know where you were going to go.
I know we'll keep that a secret, but so many exciting things hopefully headed our way.
And you know what's so exciting too, Patrick? It's like almost every day, either you text me with an idea or I text you with an idea, and it's like an eagerness to go and do it. We have the platform here, and I think we have you guys. Thank you for your support for watching these episodes as well. It is only going to get bigger and better from here, Patrick. But from yourself, from myself, from NONA Studio, a huge thank to Reese Lynn as well. We will see you in the next year. Happy holidays and a happy new year.